What? Live? Just kidding. I knew that. So what's up, you guys? How is my sound? Am I all plugged in? Let me make sure. Might not have been plugged in, huh? Is it plugged in now? Nobody's here quite yet. That's all right. I gave you guys zero warning, like zero. I didn't even notify a single mod. Where'd my phone go? I had it a second ago. So let me just start out with reading you something. So I am so happy to be on live. It is the 7th. It's the day after J6. Yeah, I know. It's 2:41 in the afternoon, and I think it's Tuesday. Last time I checked. All my videos are made for YouTube. It's an entertainment platform. I like to try to be educational. Everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a conversation up, open up a discussion, learn something, all that good stuff. I don't know if you could hear more people coughing in the background. People need to quit being sick in my house, huh? It's not allowed. Let me see if I can read you this thing real quick. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Artichoke and Project Paperclip. Project Artichoke Explained. Let's see what this says. Yeah, this is it. Wikipedia. You guys ready? Get your mind blown. Please make sure you're subscribed if you are subscribed. If you're not, please consider hitting that button. Share a video of mine with somebody that you think might like it. Turn on your notification bell to ring. And I see we have 2 people in the house and 1 like. Can we get another like? 1 more like. No like. Those were my daughter's, my first child's first 2 words. No like. Okay, so I'm going to read you the thing out of Wikipedia, Project Artichoke. Are you ready? Jackie Bushable, what's up? So I'd never heard of Project Artichoke. I guess it's the same thing as MK Ultra and Project Paperclip, but here we go. Project Artichoke, also referred to as Operation Artichoke, was a project developed and enacted by the United States CIA for the purpose of researching methods of interrogation. Project Artichoke was succeeded by Project MK Ultra, which began in 1953. Initially known as Project Bluebird, Project Artichoke officially arose on August 20th, 1951, and was operated by the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence. I just don't want to, set off any alarms here. Fred Field, 3. I hit the like button. Thank you, you guys. That's awesome. I am going to highlight that one too, just so anyone else coming in can check that out. But now it says there's only 1. What? I lost you guys? Did you fall off? Okay. Scientific intelligence. The primary goal of Project Artichoke was to determine whether a person could be involuntarily made to perform an act of attempted assassination, specifically. The project also studied the effects of mind control and hypnosis, forced addiction to and subsequent withdrawal from morphine and other chemicals, including LSD, to produce amnesia and other vulnerable states in victims. That's a really short explanation. Let's see, what was the other one that I looked up? Paperclip. There was more there, and I thought it would be the same, but of course not, right? Project Bluebird. We don't want to go there. That's too much. So There is MK Ultra. Operation Paperclip is what they actually called it, not Project Paperclip, right? I thought it was Project Paperclip. So Project Artichoke and Operation Paperclip. So let's read Wikipedia about MK Ultra. Project MK Ultra was a human experimentation program designed and undertaken by the U.S. CIA to develop procedures and identify drugs that could be used during interrogations to weaken individuals and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture. The term MK Ultra is a CIA cryptonym. NK is an arbitrary prefix standing for the Office of Technical Services. I don't understand how that works. And ultra is an arbitrary word out of a dictionary to denominate this project. The program has been widely condemned as a violation of individual rights and an example of the CIA's abuse of power, with critics highlighting its disregard for consent and its corrosive impact on democratic principles. Project MK Ultra began in 1953 and was halted in 1973, allegedly, right? MK Ultra used numerous methods to manipulate its subjects' mental states and brain functions, such as the covert administration of high doses of psychoactive drugs, especially LSD and other chemicals, without the subject's consent. That's pretty scary. Additionally, other methods beyond chemical compounds were used, including electroshocks, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal, and SA. Oh, I didn't know that they would grape the people. My God. Like it wasn't bad enough already, right? The other forms of torture. Project MK Ultra was preceded by Project Artichoke. It was organized through the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence and coordinated with the U.S. Army Biological Warfare Laboratories. The program engaged in illegal activities, including the use of U.S. and Canadian citizens as unwitting test subjects, you guys. MK Ultra's scope was broad, with activities carried out under the guise of research at more than 80 institutions aside from the military, including colleges and universities, hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. The CIA operated using front organizations, although some top officials at these institutions were aware of the CIA's involvement. Project MK Ultra was revealed to the public in 1975 by the Church Committee, named after Senator Frank Church of the United States Congress, and Gerald Ford's United States President's Commission on CIA Activities within the United States, the Rockefeller Commission. Investigative efforts were hampered by the CIA Director Richard Helms' order that all MK Ultra files be destroyed in 1973. The Church Committee and Rockefeller Commission investigations relied on the sworn testimony of direct participants and on the small number of documents that survived Helms' order. Oh, almost done here, and then I'll catch up with what you guys are saying. In 1977, a Freedom of Information Act request uncovered a cache of 20,000 documents relating to MK Ultra, which led to Senate hearings. Some surviving information about MK Ultra was declassified in 2001. Kind of interesting, huh? And what does that have to do with the price of eggs in China? We'll get to that. I thought you said the MC Ultra. Did I? I probably did, because to me it's synonymous. For people that don't know, that's the initials of the weirdo in the Kylie Rodney case that came out onto the streets of YouTube to direct traffic, right? And those are her initials, MC. And so we started calling her MC Ultra because that's what she was trying to do to everybody. So just this morning, I've been cleaning house and just kind of sifting through my thoughts about all this crap. And I was thinking, like, what if the whole town of Truckee was basically MK Ultra'd? What if all of those kids and all of those adults, I mean, you guys have seen the Truckee Way, for crying out loud. That's not normal. Is it? Bags, hello. Hello, hello. Yeah. And just, what is Lindsay's quote about silence? Strength in silence. No, that's not it. You guys remember Lindsay's quote? I can't believe I don't remember. No honor in silence. Thank you so much, Bex. It was not coming to me. Like, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. When you're on the spot, your brain sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, right? So funny. Thank you for saving my hiney. No honor in silence. No, so she was saying there's honor in silence. So thanks. So the people in Truckee, especially the kids that were born and raised there, are born into this culture where there's honor in silence, right? And kids are supposed to be like women anyway, like seen and not heard, right? I mean, that's messed up, but that's how a lot of people raise their families, or at least they used to. And yeah, it just really makes you wonder. So I've got a lot of notes about all kinds of crazy stuff. I don't know where to start. Let me start with cleaning up some of the mistakes that I made yesterday. Oh, did I put them here, or are they on a different thing? I thought they were on this notebook. Yeah, they are here. Let's see. So yesterday in my live at about the 22-minute mark, I was talking about the airplane that crash landed in South Korea, and I accidentally said South Vietnam. So I put all this in the description, my little corrections. So I had all my mistakes, like from minute 22 to minute 28. It's hilarious, a little cluster of them. At the 25-minute mark, I was talking about the Al Gore Bush election. And you got to remember that Bush Sr. was the director of the CIA for a long time. I'd have to Google it to know exactly when. But prior to his presidential election term. Anyway, we all know that Al Gore and Bush, that was 2000. That was not 1990, as I mistakenly called it at the 25-minute mark yesterday. But yeah, I was going on to say that right after the election came the 9/11, and obviously we all know that 9/11 happened in 2021, even though sometimes I get that year wrong too, just by like 1 year, one direction or the other, because it was 2021 when Bush was inaugurated, January, and then fast forward 8 months to September 11th and of 2021, 2001. Too many numbers. Stop with the numbers. Okay. I don't want to have to clean up another mess after trying to clean up yesterday's mess. So right after that, I was talking about the Chads dangling off the ballots in Florida and how asinine that was, that all of a sudden these little tiny pieces of paper had a name and their name was Chad, as if they're boys, right? Little boy pieces of paper. Oh, now I get it. Like little tiny things dangling. That's the thing with the wiffle ball bat, you guys. Same. Sorry. The 27-minute, 55-second mark yesterday, I was talking about Drew Barrymore's real-life husband at the time, who played her boyfriend Chad in the Charlie's Angels movie, and I couldn't remember the dumb guy's name, Tom Green. He was kind of weird. Anyway, of course, I remembered it as soon as I was done with my video. Oh, and then one more. Herman Andaya. So that was the guy from Hawaii who was the head of the Maui Emergency Managing Agency, Maui Emergency Managing Agency, the MEMA. And he was the chief of that. And Herman Andaya quit right after the Lahaina fires, like what, maybe 2 days after. Absolutely insane. So yeah, and then Shan was in here and she was talking about Carnegie, and we might have lost you guys. I was like, Carnegie, the library Carnegie, and the artsy fartsy elite school Carnegie, which is in Pittsburgh. I couldn't remember if the Carnegie Institute was in Pennsylvania or New York City, because there's Carnegie stuff everywhere, right? Because he basically invented libraries, or put out all the money for them or something. And so here's a term for you. Are you ready? Anybody who's here, if that's like Bex and Fred Field or Jackie Bushable, it looks like there's only 2, but I have 4 likes. That's cool. Twice as many likes as people. Thanks so much for being here, you guys. I hope you're having a good day and a good week and a good year. So, stratospheric aerosol injection. Have you guys ever heard that term? Stratospheric aerosol injection. That's kind of freaky. Let me see if I never. Okay, I'd never heard it either, Bex. And you say, I'm here still, just finishing up my workday. Awesome. So yeah, I had never heard it, stratospheric aerosol injection, but I thought, holy crap, is this where we're headed right now? I sure hope not. I might need to read you one more thing. Yeah, I think I need to read you what Wikipedia says about Operation Paperclip. Are you ready? Because I think that's where I saw it. So it's just a tiny bit longer than the last one that I read you, but it's a little bit different. Operation Paperclip was a secret United States intelligence program in which more than 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians were taken from former Nazi Germany to the U.S. for government employment at the end of World War II in Europe. Between 1945 and 1959, several were confirmed to be former members of the Nazi Party, including the SS or the SA. The effort began in earnest in 1945 as the Allies advanced into Germany and discovered a wealth of scientific talent and advanced research that had contributed to Germany's wartime technological advancements. The U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff officially established Operation Overcast, and that's kind of scary. That has something to do with that stratospheric aerosol, the overcast thing. And paperclip were related, and the terms are often used interchangeably. On July 20th, 1945, with the dual aims of leveraging German expertise for the ongoing war effort against Japan and to bolster U.S. post-war military research, the operation conducted by the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, JIOA, was largely actioned by special agents of the U.S. Army's Counterintelligence Corps, CIC. Many selected scientists were involved in the Nazi rocket program, aviation, or chemical biological warfare. And Fred's never heard of it either. I've heard of the words alone, not all together like that, right? Exactly. The Soviet Union in the following year conducted a similar program called Operation Osavikhim, Osoaviakhim, that emphasized many of the same fields of research. The operation, characterized by the recruitment of German specialists and their families, relocated more than 1,600 experts to the U.S. It has been valued at U.S. dollars 10 billion in patents and industrial processes. Recruits included such notable figures as Werner von Braun, a leading rocket technology scientist. Those recruited were instrumental in the development of the U.S. space program and military technology during the Cold War. Despite its contributions to the American scientific advancements, Operation Paperclip has been controversial because of the Nazi affiliations of many recruits and the ethics of assimilating individuals associated with war crimes into American society. The operation was solely focused on rocketry. Efforts were directed toward synthetic fuels, medicine, and other fields of research. Notable advances in aeronautics fostered rocket and spaceflight technologies. Pivotal. I was just thinking what a nerd I was with all this stuff. I'm not trying to sound smart because I'm not pivotal, right? I just proved it to you. Space flight technologies pivotal in the space race. I like that, space race. I haven't heard that one in a while. The operation played a crucial role in the establishment of NASA and the success of the Apollo missions to the moon. Operation Paperclip was part of a broader strategy by the U.S. to harness German scientific talent in the face of emerging Cold War tensions and ensuring this expertise did not fall into the hands of Soviet Union or other nations. The operation's legacy has remained controversial in subsequent decades. Goodness gracious. Can I keep reading? Let's see how long this is. It's not too much longer. But I'm nerding out. Are you guys enjoying the nerding out with me? So this is background in Operation Overcast. In February 1945, Supreme Headquarters Allied, how can I say this word? Expeditionary Force. That's a tough one for me in my little brain. Annie Ruler, howdy, playing dominoes and listening. You're so funny. Dominoes. I've never played dominoes in my life. Is that sad? So where's that big word? Expedite, expedition, expeditionary. There we go. I can say it. Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, the SHAEF, set up T-Force, or Special Sections Subdivision, which grew to over 2,000 personnel by June. This is 1945. T-Force examined 5,000 German targets, seeking expertise in synthetic rubber and oil catalysts, new designs in armored equipment, V-2 rocket weapons, jet and rocket-propelled aircraft, naval equipment, field radios, secret writing chemicals, aeromedicine research, gliders, and scientific and industrial personalities. Is there a connection to the cases you cover normally? There is, Fred. I was going to get to that. So yeah, especially the New Orleans, the Vegas, and it's a stretch, but maybe the Hawaii one. And I'll tell you why I'm thinking that stretch might not be such a stretch. I'll just say it so I don't forget. It's essentially because they're all three like tourist destinations. So it is kind of weird that all three of these like major U.S. tourist destinations had explosions of a sort of, well, I guess there wasn't explosions in New Orleans, but there was intended explosions. But the explosions on Oahu and the explosion in Vegas. And why Vegas? Where's that connection between Vegas and Hawaii? Just like with the police chief Pelletier, who had been like a police captain or something like that, and in charge of the Mandalay shooting. Was that 2018? And then he was in charge during the Lahaina fires. And when I was watching one of these things, one of the pressers, and they were talking about the Cybertruck exploding, and they kept almost saying Mandalay when they were trying to say something else. And I was like, wait, why? What? I can't remember the word that they were trying to say instead of Mandalay, if you remember. I should have written it down. I thought I'd remember, right? So anyway, yeah, I think that there's something really weird going on with all of it. I do. I think it's stupid. I think it's this, basically. Where was I? I think it was right here. 5,000 German targets seeking expertise in synthetic and oil catalysts, new designs in armored equipment, V2 rocket weapons, jet and rocket propelled aircraft, naval equipment, field radios, secret writing chemicals, aeromedicine research, gliders, and scientific and industrial personalities. And also, we need to remember all those drones in the sky, too. We can't forget about those just because that was like 10 whole days ago or something, right? When large numbers of German scientists began to be discovered by the advancing Allied forces in late April of 1945, the Special Selection Subdivision set up the Enemy Personnel Exploitation Section to manage and interrogate them. The Enemy Personnel Exploitation Section established a detention center, Camp Dustbin, if you heard of that. The first near Paris and later in Kranzberg Castle outside of Frankfurt. I personally have never heard of Camp Dustbin. The U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, JCS, established the first secret recruitment program called Operation Overcast on July 20th of 1945, initially to assist in shortening the Japanese War and to aid our post-war military research. I don't want to be in a wartime, but I'm afraid that this is the precursor. Sorry to share my fears with you, but hopefully I'll be wrong, right? Hopefully I'll be proven wrong. Let's see. I'd like to be incorrect in situations like this. The term overcast was the name first given by the German scientists' family members for the housing camp where they were held in Bavaria. In late summer 1945, the JCS established the JIOA, a subcommittee of the Joint Intelligence Community, to oversee the Operation Overcast and later Operation Paperclip. So Operation Overcast is something that Tracy from Brush Junkie was talking about in her last video. And I was sort of like, this is a little above my level of expertise. But it's a thing, the Operation Overcast. And I think it has to do with that stratospheric aerosol injection. Sorry to put that together. And especially, like I said, I would love to be proven wrong. But I don't think I am. I mean, it makes sense, right? I wouldn't be wasting my time and yours talking about this if I thought I was in left field. But I hope that I'm in left field. Please, please, please let me be in left field. Okay, let's get on with this. Let's finish it up. The JIOA representatives included the Army's Director of Intelligence, the Chief of Naval Intelligence, the Assistant Chief of Air Staff 2, Air Force Intelligence, and a representative from the State Department. In November 1945, Operation Overcast was renamed Operation Paperclip by Ordnance Corps officers who would attach a paperclip to the folders of those rocket experts whom they wished to employ in the United States. Oh, I'm so happy to find out where that came from. I thought they were just kind of being random and just trying to use like a weird term that sounded goofy to mean something big. Okay, so there's actually logic to it. The project was not initially targeted against the Soviet Union. Rather, the concern was that German scientists might emigrate and continue their research in countries that remained neutral during the war. Much U.S. effort was focused on Saxony and Thuringia. I've never heard of that country, which on July 1st, 1945, became part of the Soviet occupation zone. Many German research facilities and personnel have been evacuated to these states before the end of the war, particularly from the Berlin area. The USSR then relocated more than 2,200 Nazi specialists and their families, more than 6,000 people, with Operation Osaka Viakum, I think I spelled that out for you guys earlier, during one night on October 22nd, 1946. In a secret directive circulated on September 3rd, President Truman officially approved Operation Paperclip. It's almost over. Thanks for your patience. Officially approved Operation Paperclip and expanded it to include 1,000 German scientists under temporary limited military custody. News media revealed the program as early as December 1946. On April 26, 1946, the Joint Chiefs of Staff issued Directive JC 1067/14 to General Eisenhower, instructing that he preserve, which is it? Preserve from destruction, I think. Instructing that he preserve from destruction and take under your control records, plans, books, documents, papers, files, and scientific, industrial, and other information and data belonging to German organizations engaged in military research. And that, accepting war criminals, like except for war criminals, German scientists be detained for intelligence purposes as required. See, this is so crazy to me. 1946. My mother was born in 1943. Her father was a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army. He had fought in the Korean War, which was prior to her birth. If anybody knows, it was probably like around 1940, the Korean War. And then he was stationed in Germany. I know when one of my aunts was born 10 years after her, 1953 was when they were stationed in Germany. And then in the early 70s, when I was born, he was stationed at the Pentagon. And then after that, he was stationed in Fort Monmouth in New Jersey. And he was like a computer expert, you guys. My grandfather was like miles ahead of all of us with the computers. He was always trying to tell us that there were going to be little computers like the size of your, the head of a pen, and that we were all going to have handheld devices and household devices. And, this was back when the computers of the military like took up an entire room, like a very, very large room, right? Side note, think of me with positive vibes tomorrow. I have an appointment with cardiologist tomorrow as a follow-up to my ER hospital stay at the end of this last year, hoping it will be, keep an eye on it. Oh yeah, Fred, thanks for sharing. I hope so. Let's all send positive healing vibes to Mr. Field. The Korean War, it's hiding behind there. Korean War was in the 50s. Oh, thank you, Fred. Why did I think it was before my mother was born? because I'm stupid. No, I'm just kidding. It's before I was born. So, yeah, I mean, he joined the military right around the time she was born. So yeah, my brain is just all jumbled. So yeah, they were in college at Ohio State University and they dropped out, my grandmother and grandfather, because they were pregnant with her. And then my grandmother became a career military housewife and my grandfather became a soldier, and he quickly moved up the ranks. And so, yeah, of course it wasn't before my mom was born. He would have been a tween. So I think they were like 19 when my mom was born, if that. I mean, they were young. So thanks for the clarification, Fred. Otherwise, I would have been having to clean that mess up. See, I should just keep a sock in it, right? So what about these mini manifestos that are being portrayed as manifestos when they're not? They're just simply notes, like post-it notes practically, but digital post-it notes, like in phones of like Mangione and this Matt Livelsberger, I think is how you say his name. So it's just so bizarre that they try to call these things manifestos. It's like by calling those things manifestos, they're calling these guys terrorists. And it could well be, even with Luigi Mangione, if I'm saying his name right, it could well be that they've been MK Ultra'd, especially with the guy in Vegas, Matt Livelsberger, and the other guy in New Orleans with their careers in the military. They could well be. But then Luigi Mangione had his master's degree in IT. So he could have been doing some kind of scholarship or project with the government. I mean, that happens a lot with really smart individuals, right? And I wonder if anything like that was happening with Kohberger. Dang. You know, sometimes I wonder if a lot of these cases on YouTube aren't psyops, that it's like, you know, you have your Project Paperclip, your Project whatever, all of these weird things, Artichoke, and then like what if you just had like Project YouTube? I'm serious. What if? Hey, C3PO, hola, 1950 to 53 to be exact. Okay, cool, because it was right after, it was 1953 when my aunt was born, who was born in Germany. How does that work? And they were already stationed in Germany, but he fought in the Korean War. But, interesting. Yeah. Not only psyops, but connected. Right. Mangione said to family he found a place for a nice retreat. Psyop, in my opinion. I don't understand what you mean by that, Annie Ruler. Can you please explain? Can you mansplain it to me? That's interesting. He said he found a place for a nice retreat. But yeah, like the whole thing with the Cybertruck and with Matt Livelsberger is that a lot of the way the media is portraying the situation, it doesn't make sense. And I'll put a link to the Brush Junkie video that she dropped yesterday around the same time I was doing my live. It's all very confusing to me. And it sounds like a huge effing conspiracy. It sounds completely crazy. But there was a YouTuber, a podcaster, who somebody sent an email to, like right when all this first happened with the Cybertruck in front of the Trump Hotel in Vegas. And then that YouTuber put the email on his channel, and then he went into hiding. You guys know who I'm talking about, right? It's the one that Christina Randall was talking about too. And then I tried to go watch that video, and I was just like, what? I couldn't not understand. So Tracy from Brush Junkie was talking about the same one that Christina Randall was talking about. So let's see, Brush Junkie. This was...
If you're over 30, you get scammed.
Stop, please. I don't want that. I just want to see what's going on with Tracy's channel here. Sean Ryan, that's the guy. Sean Ryan had been sent an email. You guys probably heard about all this, right? And I don't know who Sean Ryan is, but that's the same one that Christina Randall was talking about. And then let me look up Sean Ryan. And then it was just a whole lot of crazy. A whole lot of crazy. The Sean Ryan Show podcast. Are you guys familiar? I mean, he's got 4 million subscribers. And then he's also got this, the person, the Cybertruck bomber, that woman that was from the CIA allegedly. I don't know if that's accurate. Oh, I think he took the video down because there was so much going on there. So here's a 32-second video from 4 days ago. I don't know. It kind of seems like a rabbit hole, right? I mean, it kind of seems like some kind of psyops thing. What do you guys know about this Sean Ryan channel? Mangione family seemed to have money. Oh, yeah, they had money. They owned country clubs and nursing homes. They were like old Baltimore, I think, old Maryland money. He was finding himself, wrote to family, I found a perfect place to meditate, will be off, something like that. Yeah, maybe when he was in Hawaii, he was living in Hawaii and he loved it there. So, yeah, he was living in, it wasn't like a hippie commune, but kind of like a high-tech commune. And, yeah, it was all like young men his age that could work remotely so they could have their jobs and have their income and live wherever they wanted. And they wanted to live in Hawaii. So those are a lot of the friends that came and spoke out about him and their experience with him. But yeah, I mean, what I'm thinking with Mangione and with Livelsberger and maybe with Mr. Jabber, or I'm not sure how to say his name, the guy from New Orleans, is that maybe they were being MK Ultra kind of thing, and then stuff went sideways and like the experiment didn't work. I don't know. I mean, it's so freaking bizarre to have all of these things happening so close together right at the end of the year, right at New Year's, right before New Year's. I don't understand. But let me see what else I've got with Othram is the name of the lab in Texas, Woodland, Texas, that found the DNA allegedly on the knife sheath, hopping over to the University of Idaho case, Brian Kohberger's DNA in the back of the button snap of the knife sheath. So let's talk about that for a minute, because Othram only opened that lab in 2018. And as you guys all know, Idaho 4 happened in 2022, so 4 years later. And they ran the knife sheath through a lab in Idaho and didn't find anything on it, is what I've come to understand. And then they sent the potential evidence to the lab in Texas, and then they were able to find that single source DNA in the back of the snap. So the only way that could make any sense, and it makes zero sense to me, would be that somebody planted that sheath, whether it was, let's say, hypothetically, Brian Kohberger, that he somehow got all the DNA off of the porous leather, but he missed a spot. But then he was planting it for shits and giggles, or to make it look like it was somebody that was a Marine that did it. I don't know. Like, why would he plant that there? That makes zero sense. And if he was wiping it down, he's not going to wipe it down unless he's planning on leaving it. So really, whoever left it there on purpose. So it is a planted piece of evidence. And then what? They were just like messing around and having fun, and then they accidentally left that little single strand of DNA, single source of DNA. And one of the things that I really question is that I know from watching all the forensic files, stuff like that, that when you test DNA, your sample gets consumed in the testing. So it's weird to me that they could have tested that whole sheath and found no DNA on it, and then sent it off and found the DNA. I just had a weird thought. Like, what if Kohberger worked in the lab in Idaho where they tested it? What if that's where the DNA got on it? Because we know that that's touch DNA. Or whoever was handling it in the lab had some of his touch DNA accidentally or on purpose. I mean, let's see. Planted DNA too. Right. And then the whole thing with that piece of evidence being taken into evidence by the Idaho State Highway Patrol trooper, that same trooper, I just looked up his name recently, that was basically on the Brady Giglio list for his involvement. Oh, you know the trooper, Annie. Toulson, right? Trooper Toulson. Yeah, like Toll House Cookies. Toulson, I think. So he's the same trooper that was actively on the Brady Giglio list from the homicide of the chiropractor over there in Bonner's Ferry. Dr. Drake. And then there was the other chiropractor that made a false confession that he did it, and it was because of Toulson's unethical interrogation type of thing. So that's what the Brady Giglio was. So when that was active, why would he be not only on site of this horrific quadruple slaughter, but why would he, of all people, of all departments, like, you're not going to have a state highway trooper take something into evidence when it's a Moscow PD case. You've got FBI, probably had Homeland Security, you probably had U.S. Marshals, you probably had the whole 9 yards because of the level of crime and violence. So why the state trooper? Like, it's almost like taking your least experienced youngest corporal and making him the lead, even though it takes him 4 hours to arrive. It's like you're putting it on these people that are disposable, basically. So then you can just not worry about it. Like, nobody that has a lot of clout in the department is going to want to have that on them. Like, why in the world would the trooper take that into evidence? That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy to me. And yeah, I mean, that whole case has always seemed like a psyops. Kylie's case has always seemed like a psyops. Idaho 4. And the whole thing with the freaking Cybertruck burning in front of the Trump, not tower, but Trump Hotel there in Vegas is just like such a photo op. It's so much like from, I don't know, a video game or something, from a movie, from like an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Terminator 5, Terminator 15. I mean, come on. And yeah, that guy, Matt Livelsberger, so sad. Now, wait. Fort Bragg, I better look this up, but I'm thinking Fort Bragg is also where Corporal Payne and Kopacka, I think they were both stationed at Fort Bragg. I know it's a big fort, so I want to, underscore that. Othram is using unapproved DNA and me type data. 23andMe, even if Box says not for Ellie. Oh yeah, I mean, that 23andMe stuff is crazy. Corrupt Toussaint. Who's that? Dr. Moore. Yeah, Dr. Drake and Dr. Moore. I think Dr. Drake was the one that was red roamed, and Dr. Moore was the one who filed the Brady Giglio complaint against Toulson, I think. BK did work in that lab. Oh, don't tell me that. Danny Ruler? That's crazy. Don't tell me that. Well, which BK? Are you talking about Kopacka or Koberger? I'm thinking you're talking about Koberger. BK did work in that lab, but I feel their secret society training has them with sterile sheath, pretending 20 cells when they have their frame, in my opinion. Yeah, I forgot that Fort Bragg was where at least one of the Payne brothers, if not both of the Payne brothers, were stationed. Isn't that where the 84th Brigade is? So the 84th Brigade, I think, is in Fort Bragg, and that's where Brett Payne and Brent Kopacka were both stationed, not at the same time. But they were both paratroopers along with Kyle Payne, Brett Payne's older brother, who's still active military. So all three of them were paratroopers, and Kyle Payne did overlap with Kopacka. They were the exact same age, but Kyle went to university before he went active duty, and Kopacka went straight to active duty right out of high school. So it's just crazy, isn't it? It's so crazy. And then you got to remember Zanime and all of her active duty military stuff, allegedly, that she says that she worked in. And I think that was all verified. So bizarre. So bizarre. And where did my brain want to run with that? It's just going to implode, really. So my brain wanted to go with something I said yesterday about the University of Idaho being like a cult, like Truckee being like a cult. Ninchi True Crime, good morning, my dear. Thank you so much for coming in. So yeah, I'm just going a little like haywire talking about all this, like Operation Paperclip, Project Artichoke, MK Ultra, tying it in with some of these cases, including the Kylie Rodney case. We cannot ask ourselves enough, because we never can come up with an answer of why in the world, in Kylie Rodney's missing teenager from a party case, why they had all those boots on the ground from Homeland Security, U.S. Marshal, the missing and exploited children's conglomerate, along with the sheriffs, the local police, the state highway patrol, the DEA. Wasn't the DEA out there? Again, that would make sense if this is a car that doesn't tell or a car that does tell kind of deal, right? You're not going to have all of those players out there, and you're not going to have 20,000 hours of manpower spent looking for a silver CRV when it's 50 feet away in 14 feet of water and not find it for 2 weeks. You're just not. Like, this stuff is so crazy. And it's like they're testing the psyche of the public. Like, can we sell this asinine crap? Are people going to buy it because we're in positions of authority and we say it? And yeah, pretty much every time. Drives me nuts. Absolutely drives me nuts. So, you know, when you look at the Idaho 4 case, when you look at Brett Payne and the state highway patrolman Tolson, who was working on that case in Bonners Ferry, which is like 4 hours away from Moscow, and Brett Payne owns the meats and locker business in Bonners Ferry. That I think he bought it when he was like 17 or 18. Like, he was still in high school when he bought it. And then I think he opened up a branch of it over there in Castle Rock, Washington State, which is just south of Olympia, Washington, and not far from where Caden Young became unalive by overdose on spring break. This is getting a little out there, but follow me if you want. Caden Young was a student from the University of Idaho on spring break, taking substances supplied to him by Demetrius Robertson, if I'm getting his name right, and Emma. I can't remember Emma's last name at the moment. Demetrius and Emma supplied the substances. Caden Young was not just a student at the University of Idaho. He was also the editor of the Argonaut, which is the newspaper for the University of Idaho. And he was also the president of his fraternity the year prior. So this is a pretty outstanding student. And he played on the football team, I'm pretty sure. So there's 2 Caden Youngs. And the other one was one of the star players on the football team, I think. But I think that the Caden Young that OD'd, I believe, was also on the football team. And when people OD, sometimes people OD them. You know what I mean? Like, they're given what's called a hot shot. Like, you're not, hot shots are not designed to be survived. People give a hot shot to try to camouflage a red rum, basically. And then it's really easy to say, especially if they have a substance abuse history. I don't know that Caden Young did have a substance abuse history. I mean, I think the night before he passed away, he was potentially abusing substances because he landed in the ER at Harborview up in Seattle, up on Capitol Hill. He landed in the ER, they sent him home, and then he passed away the next day from the overdose. So, and then Emma and Demetrius were put in jail. They had a hearing the same day as Koberger. They got sprung from jail because that was the source of where the substances came from, was Moscow. What's the name of the county? I want to say Latte County. Latah, I think is how you spell it. Latah County. So they were put in jail in Latah County because that's where the substances originated from. But then they were sprung because they said, well, because he overdosed over there in Western Washington, maybe Thurston County, or whatever county is south of Thurston County, where Castle Rock is, that they would need to be put in jail there. And then I have never heard of them being put in jail again. And this is with a deceased 21-year-old, right? Oh, Annie Ruler, those helicopters would have seen that car in the lake. They take us for idiots. Yeah. Yeah. And they were flying drones overhead. SF Investigates had his drone. You got Zaname in her canoe or her kayak saying there she is with the little arrow. These people, man. Car was not there for 2 weeks. Large search was to stop her before she exposed secrets, in my opinion. So yeah, you're saying that maybe she wasn't deceased yet. Emma Bailey, thank you. It's always nice to get the full picture. Annie Ruler. Caden was allegedly air in vein. I don't know what that. Air in vein. Oh, not an overdose. I had not heard that, Annie Ruler. That's wild. Because if it was air in vein, again, you wouldn't know if it was intentional or unintentional, if it was administered by someone else. Huh. But yeah, being that he was the president of his fraternity and the editor of the newspaper, it just doesn't sound like somebody who's using needles. I mean, I know a lot of college kids use rugs for sure. I'm not saying that. A lot of frat boys and rugs kind of go together like peanut butter and jelly. And fraternities often deal the rugs to make money for their establishment. And because Caden was the editor-in-chief of the Argonaut, he may well have been informed about some things that people didn't want him to know. It's extremely likely. Chances are extraordinarily high. Anyway, so that case is still hanging out there in the wind. Still the spin doctors on News Nation and little Gigi or Jen, whatever the little redheaded booger wants to call herself. And then, then we've got these channels that are fairly reputable, acting like she's reputable. But a lot of people that watch videos don't really check the content creator's sources. And when Plunder said that Jen was her source, that went right over my head. First of all, I didn't know she changed her name to Jen. It wasn't until, because she was Gigi, right? With that stupid fake letter. about Kohberger. It wasn't until Jules of All Trades brought that up, and then I realized that Jen and Gigi were the same person, and I was just like, hell no. Like, I hoped that she had just gone away. But, this is why a lot of people have no respect for true crime and for YouTube, is because you got all this effery. You got all this clickbait and mind games, and what of it is meaningful? What of it is important? What of it is real? I think that there's a lot of real, important, meaningful information that's going through the cycles of the YouTube, and trying to figure out what's what is my challenge. I mean, that's where I feel like I am right now, but I'm kind of like the blind leading the blind. I mean, not that I'm leading anybody, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm just kind of following my instinct and my intuition. I don't know that much about any of this stuff, really, when it comes right down to it. I probably know more than a lot of people from my own work working in the courts, my own work working in mental health, my family working as first responders and in the military. But a lot of it is just common sense, and having read a lot of good books, like not that I read a lot anymore, but one of my favorite books of all time is Gavin de Becker, The Gift of Fear. We got to talk about that, because that book changed my life probably like no other. The Gift of Fear, I want to say I've read it 3 or 4 times. The only other book that I've read more than once is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, and I've read that too many times. I've read that like 13 times, I think. You could say I was obsessed with that book. If you really want to know about it, I'll tell you the story. I think that's like the very first line in the book. If you really want to hear about it, and it's coming directly from Holden Caulfield, and he's talking to a counselor in a psych unit, and he's telling them his meltdown of how he got there, basically his nervous breakdown, if you want to call it that. That's what they used to call it back in the old days. Now they call it psychotic break and all this other stuff. And yeah, it's mind-boggling, isn't it? The mental health aspect to all of this, when you're dealing with the, especially with Matt Leibelsberger, the alleged driver of the cyber truck. So in Tracy's video that I'll link up, she says that the authorities first reported that he died of a gunshot wound to the head prior to the explosion. Okay. Makes me think that it could be that somebody else was involved, not just him. And then they've changed their tune, saying that he died of a gunshot wound to the head simultaneous with the explosion. Because, you've got videotape surveillance of him in the front seat of the Cybertruck right there in the valet parking area in front of the Trump Hotel. So I've seen some still shots from that video tape surveillance, I think in Tracy's video yesterday, where he's sitting there in the driver's seat, and it looks like it's him, and it looks like he's cognizant and breathing and alive, basically. It looks like he's alive. And then they said that they were showing the last frame right before the explosion. They didn't want to show anything after the explosion, because they thought it would get taken off of YouTube. And yeah, I'm sure it would. But, it made me suspicious right away when the authorities were reporting that it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound prior to the explosion. It's like, don't you need to do a full autopsy? You could say suspected self-inflicted gunshot wound, but to definitively state that it's a self-inflicted when you don't even know the angle of the bullet or the stippling of the blood splatter to know if it's even remotely possible that it was self-inflicted. And then this is all in Tracy's video. His tattoos are somewhat intact. Oh, this reminded me of Brian Laundrie, you guys. You know how his wallet is in the car and his ID is in there. And there's a picture of him without his shirt on showing his tattoos. So you can say, oh, look, there's a picture of him with his tattoos. And here he is with his tattoos. Yep, it's a match. That, to use Tracy's word, is just a little too convenient for me. A little too convenient. Sherry, hello, hello. Ah, man. I really want to know what the F is going on. Like, are we all just being clustered, being mind effed? Are we all being MK Ultra'd? Sometimes I think it's so. And then this whole thing with this stratospheric aerosol injection. So that's where Tracy's video left off, with the stratospheric aerosol injection and the fog that is being researched. And there was this weird quote about the like basically airborne illness, you guys. So think of like COVID and think of the quote is, a virus doesn't need to be terminal. It just needs to incapacitate people temporarily. I was blown away by that quote. I came across that on something I was reading. I'll have to dig it up. So the unacknowledged special access program, I think, is something that Matt Livelsberger was involved in. Unacknowledged special access program, or at least something that he mentions in his little memo about, that they tried to call a manifesto. It's like I'll just call it a memo manifesto, because it's like manifestos are usually like 400 pages. They're crazy talk, right? You don't have like a single page or a single paragraph manifesto. That's just a paragraph or a page. That's just like a note, basically. So I'm going to call it a memo manifesto, like a sticky note manifesto. I think of like 3M and those little yellow sticky notes. Like, yeah, I'm going to write my manifesto on little sticky notes. But the National Archives website was allegedly down yesterday. The Electoral College website was down yesterday, you guys. Allegedly. People were online saying that they were trying to log on and that they couldn't, that there was a glitch in it. And, the accusation is obvious that this is not a free and fair election, and that there's bots involved, as well as Elon and Russia. Yeah, just put me in a straitjacket and lock me up. Give me a rubber room. I'll be good to go. I'll get over it. Just some electroshock therapy. Yeah. What else do I have here? Oh, here we go. Jewels of all trade. This was a quote of hers. So one of the people I didn't mention in talking about the Idaho 4, I didn't talk about Maori. Maori is the officer from Moscow PD who is allegedly like their IT expert. So that's who they try to like say is their guy with the clout. So like they wouldn't want to give the case to Maori if it's a bad case, because he'll go down with it. But they can give it to Payne because he's kind of young and disposable. But remember, they were trying to tell us that he was 26 years old when he was actually 33 when he took that case, when he was the lead. And then Blaker was the sergeant above him who arrived with him 4 hours late to the scene. So Payne and Blaker were the two who said in their in the PCA that they saw the sheath. But what I loved that our girl was talking about Jules of True Crime was talking about Megyn Kelly is not a viable source of information. You know Megyn Kelly from like Fox News, or I think she's also on News Nation, and she's just not a viable source of information at all. Just like the medical examiner Mabbitt is not a viable source of information. Do you guys remember when Mabbitt said early on in the case that it wouldn't matter what the tox screen showed, that they didn't even really need to do tox screens because we know how they died? It was from all the slashing. It's just like the craziest thing in the world. Completely insane. Of course, you need to know what was in their systems. Sure, it doesn't change how they passed away, but it's part of the story. Absolutely part of the story. And it actually could change how they passed away, right? But yeah, the stalking allegations that were made against Kohberger stalking Maddie or others in that house were completely fabricated. And I always want to go back to the dog. What was that little dog's name that was so cute? The 12-year-old dog that was skinned a couple of weeks. Buddy. Buddy was skinned a couple of weeks before the Idaho 4, or maybe a couple of months before. And it was just like literally a couple miles down the road. So like on that same street, but out of town in the country. So not far at all. And that poor little dog was filleted on one side. So it was like somebody that was an expert in hunting and skinning and filleting. And sorry, I didn't give you a trigger warning, but that dog was always tied in with the case until it wasn't. And then they quit talking about it. But that dog was mentioned in Gigi's stupid fake letter, that like the date that dog was skinned was like the same day that the letter was received or something, or the same day as a meeting, like a reprimanding meeting or something crazy like that. Like she kept trying to like synchronize all these things, where I always go with synchronizing the November 4th resignation date of Matthew Kurt, the sergeant from Wazoo that had gotten his entire command staff resigned over the summer. And then it wasn't until they all resigned over the summer that then I think it was like July maybe, that so you had Don Daniels holding down the fort there until Jenkins came in to hold down the fort. And then I think Jenkins was interim for 2 years, and I think he's resigned now, right? Like all these people involved are resigned. Chief Small Fry resigned after a 29-year career in law enforcement. He said because he wanted to run for the sheriff, which he did, and he did not win the election. It doesn't really make much sense to sign off of your pension career at 29 years. Like you finish it out, you go 30. It doesn't make sense. I mean, even if he was expecting to win the election for sheriff, that's still a different pension plan. You know, a city police officer or city police chief is a different pension plan than the sheriff's department. So, I mean, I don't know everything about that. I do know some about that, but it just doesn't make any sense. So, and I know there's been recent activity with Don Daniels too. And then there's been recent activity with the Pullman PD. Whoever replaced Jenkins for the police chief there, he's gone too. Like, that's kind of weird that all these police chiefs are falling off at the same time, because a lot of times police chiefs last 5 to 10 years. So why did Jenkins only go to Wazoo for 2 years? Why did the guy who took his place only keep it for 2 years? And why did Small Fry resign after, midway through this case that's still completely unresolved? Is that enough questions for you? Should we just wrap it up, or I'm going to read your lovely comments here. Cancer is a parasite. Ivermectin eats it. So that's the chemical. Isn't that the chemical that was for treating COVID, or that Tenacious D said would treat COVID? I'm not saying it right. Ivermectin. None of these are reliable. Mabbit, in my opinion, everything was opposite. Not in bed and not red liquid all over. Right. And she was there for like an hour, I think, waiting around. I don't think she could go in to the crime scene until the lead detective arrived. So she was there, but she didn't go in until like 5 o'clock, because they didn't get the call until about noon. And then the lead detectives got there at about 4. And it happened at 4, 12 hours earlier, but really it happened at 3 and it was all done by 4. But then they said, no, nothing started until 4. We know because approximately about the DoorDash delivery came at right around 4-ish, but they would have the exact time of the DoorDash, the exact time. Makes no sense. Sherry says, at the grub truck, it showed that guy putting something in her mouth. You can't tell me that didn't have rugs in the system. So are you talking about the part where Annie Ruler thought that the guy was like using pliers on her face? Is that what you're talking about, Sherry Irving? That's interesting. Yeah. All that grub truck stuff. Sorry for whacking the mic. Mabbit is lying about everything. Yeah, isn't she? She's a bizarre old lady. And she's a defense attorney. So she was the defense attorney for the guy who had stabbed somebody. The guy that they arrested like a week later because he was stabbing or threatening to stab himself and his wife. But he had taken the life of somebody, I want to say 7 years earlier, and Mabbit performed the autopsy on that victim, and she was the defense attorney for that guy, which is just wrong. You just don't do that. And then she got his sentence reduced to like 2 years when it was like straight up homicide. That's like magic right there. So when is Mabbit's comeuppance? And you know who else, like, we never talk about in that case is the prosecuting attorney, the guy who really looks like Saint Nick. You guys remember his name? He plays guitar. He plays banjo. He's a musician. And he looks like the nicest old man in the world, but no, when you've got crooked cases, you've got a crooked prosecuting attorney. Sorry for all the noise. Yes, ivermectin was MSM pushed as only for horses. I gave my horses penicillin, amazing Nobel Prize winning antiviral med. The angle is weird. The guy was giving his ticket to pick up food. Right. And I said Annie Ruler was the one who was looking at that, but it might have been the other Annie. Who's the other Annie? Annie Ruler. Help me out here. The dogs are hijacking my brain, all that barking. Granny Annie Ruler. Aren't you one and the same? I don't know. I get confused. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just, I think you've told me that you're one and the same. It's like two different accounts or something. Let's see. Sherry says, nope. There was a video showing a guy putting a white tablet in Kaylee's mouth. Bill Thompson, thank you, Bax. You saved me again. You saved me as soon as you came in, and you're saving me here at the end. Bill Thompson, I think we need to look into him. I do. And so, after I made my video yesterday, I rewatched that video that Seeker of Truth had dropped yesterday. And she was really focused on the expression on little Kylie Rodney's face when she was singing Fiddling Man with her granddad and a few other old men. And she's so cute in her little white dress, and she just looks so angry and so miserable. And I love what Ninja did with that video a while ago when she was talking about how Kylie took the music in a different direction to basically run circles around them and show them how smart she was, which I don't know enough about music to be able to identify that, but I trust that Ninja does. And going back and watching that performance, and I'll put a link to that in the description, like, she does smile at the very end when somebody tells her to smile. But the whole time she looks miserable and angry and put out, basically. And she's so little. She's probably like 8 years old. I wouldn't say any older than like 9 at the oldest, at the very oldest. I'm thinking more like 7 or 8, like right after they moved into that lodge. And it is really weird that not only does her granddad look so happy, but that he looks so oblivious to how angry she's acting. Granny Annie is the same. G rates Granny. Cool. Anna Bees. Yeah, Anna Bees. But yeah, it was you, Annie Ruler, right, that wanted to break down that video of what looked like, and it did look like he was twisting a part of her face with pliers, but it was just like a weird glitch in the film or something, right? Kids at the zoo are Granny's audience. Can we talk about the expression on Bay's face when her pregnant belly folded? Thank you for that. Yeah, I was going to get ready to wrap up because it is, what time? It's 4 o'clock and the dogs just won't stop barking, man. Those wild animals, release the hounds, right? But yeah, let's talk about that for a second. C3PO. I love that you put that in there because, yeah, that look on her face is hilarious. Anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, I will put a link in the description to what's the name of the channel? The MPD? No, Not My Cup of Tea. 2 different channels. So the one that's called Not My Cup of Tea did a really good video a few weeks ago where she really breaks down Beyonce with her, I think it's a red dress and a fake pregnant belly. And she's interviewing and she's walking across the room, like her arms are really stiff. And this is just me. I'm just guessing that somebody told her right before she walked out there, like, remember to be stiff. But they meant when you're sitting your butt down, because when you're big and pregnant, you have to be really stiff when you're sitting down. Like, it's really hard to get in and out of a car because you have to like keep your back like there's a pole on your spine, right? You can't fold, you can't bend. But she's like walking like she's got Barbie doll arms that don't bend. And then when she gets to the chair, she totally bends and folds, as does her weird stomach that, like I say weird stomach because of the way the red dress was clinging to it as she's walking across the room. Unless she had some cover over her belly, the dress isn't going to cling like that to a pregnant belly. In fact, the stretching of the skin is going to make the dress kind of like slide and glide, but it's like all clingy and it's like this perfect weird shape. And then when she sits down and folds, and I mean, she folds all the way over, like she folds all the way over like this. And then she comes up all slow and she's got this look in her eyes like, crap, I blew it. And it's like, man, you did blow it, but you're blowing it worse with that look on your face. So for that, we can thank her. And that all goes back to the whole thing with Blue Ivy maybe not being her biological daughter. Like she was faking her pregnancy, and she announced that pregnancy 2 days before Kathy White was unalive in her own apartment, unattended, unaliving. 28 years old, 29 years old, alleged brain aneurysm. But I think it was one of those cases where like the police arrived and were like, oh, no foul play here. Nothing suspicious here. You know, like you can't say it so fast. You can say it doesn't appear to be any foul play. It doesn't appear to be anything suspicious. But when you make definitive statements that fast, it's obvious that you're lying, in my opinion. So we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks so much for being here with me, you guys. We got 7 likes and 6 in the house. So I hope you have a really good afternoon. Sending you love and light. Keep trying to do the yoga if you're interested, or if not, just do something to move your body so that you're healthy and feeling good. I mean, our health is priceless, right? If we don't have our health, we don't have anything. So I've got all these crazy necklaces on. What earrings did I stick with? Okay, the earrings I made, the silver necklace with the tree I made. This one, I think J. Crew made. And then this one, I don't know who made it. It's like from Indonesia. It was one of my mama's. Anyway, doing my Kylie 3 necklaces. I love that she inspired me to triple up on my necklaces, because I really used to only wear one at a time. I just like to keep it simple. And I love doing the 3 necklaces at a time. Sometimes, depending, it can be a little tricky because you got to get them all the right length and stuff so that they're sitting flat. Anyway, I love you guys. Sending you all of the good vibes in the world. Thank you so much for your good vibes, and thanks for watching. Thanks for liking. What else? Tomorrow's Wednesday, the 8th, and then the day after that is Jimmy Carter's funeral, the 9th, Thursday. You know, I was glad that yesterday went off without a hitch to some extent. And on the other hand, I was just like, you know, we got robbed because the law is the law, and aren't you supposed to apply the law? I mean, I was glad that there was no violence. I'll put it that way. I was really glad that there was no violence. But it would have been nice to at least have the law be acknowledged, even if not applied. I don't understand. I really don't. It's blowing my mind. Anyway, not to go off in that political direction right as I'm wrapping up, but you know me. The politics and the true crime are having a head-on collision, is what I've been saying. That's my opinion. That's how it appears to me. So I'm just going to keep trying to fight for truth and fight for justice and see where it goes, see what happens. I mean, what is our world coming to, you guys? Are we going to merge with Canada? Is Canada going to merge with the U.S.? What a weird terminology that Tenacious D was using the day before yesterday. or was that yesterday? Merging. Like, countries don't merge, corporations merge. I know he thinks that we're corporations, but yeah, whatever. Him and his freaking tweets, his Truth Social posts, they're just so bizarre. And he just can't take a rest. Like why not just gloat for a moment? Why not just like soak in the victory and just be happy for a second and then complain some more? Anyway, peace out, you guys. Love and light. Make sure you stay well hydrated and well nourished and well rested, and we will see you on the next one. Have a great afternoon.